So there's a thing called social engineering, where it's one of the easiest ways besides phishing to get information from and about a company. And what that entails is people will call your company and be pretending to be either the CEO or the IT help desk or someone who thinks they have permission to be in that company. You may not know who they are, but they're asking for things like, for example, the IT help desk. I'll call your company like, hi, this is IT. I'm locked. I think someone's locked out and you're getting to the computer. Can you just give me this password real quick? But first of all, why would IT be asking you for a password to get into the computer if they're IT? But some people are so busy sometimes, they just don't realize what they're doing and they give out information over the phone that they shouldn't.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and turn them into cash-based multimillionaire entrepreneurs. Warning, if you're a doctor who listens to this podcast regularly, you will make millions of dollars. Do not listen to this podcast unless you want to be a successful clinic owner who helps thousands of patients achieve their health goals and adds more money than you can imagine to your bank account. You've been warned.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and we turn them into super clinic owners. I'm your host, Jennifer Gligoric, and today our guest works in healthcare as a cybersecurity expert managing over 40 clinics. He's the founder and CEO of ITCMD and the host of the Multiverse Leadership and Technology podcast. Aside from that, his personal story is one of profound transformation and relentless self-leadership, shaped by surviving addiction, a near-death overdose, and a vivid realization of his true higher purpose. Today, he's going to speak to us about the human firewall, why connection is our greatest cybersecurity tool. So let us welcome the amazing Justin ITee Walker to our show today. Hey there, Justin.
Hey, Jennifer. Thanks for having me on here today. Great to see you again.
It is great to see you again, too. I've always just loved talking with you because I learn so much, and I cannot wait for our audience to learn, too. So let me just ask straight up, why is connection our greatest cybersecurity tool?
You know, that is a good question. I don't have an answer. No, I'm just, just kidding.
Womp womp, no.
So because human connection is the greatest tool because we are the forefront of any of the incidents and things that are going to happen. Let me rephrase that. So, for example, as human beings, we have a lot of the knowledge or lack knowledge how to protect our companies and vice versa. So in that process, we have to understand that we need to have our leaders being able to help us understand where we need to be and what we need to do with our cybersecurity. If you don't know how to look at an email or know how to answer the phone correctly, you'll give out so much information you won't know you're doing it. And therefore, you put your company at risk. Because so many people use like social engineering to call companies or send phishing emails. And you have to be trained how to answer and respond to those properly. And many of us are not.
We just had a guest on our show, and it was Dr. Virginia Isbell, and their system was hacked. And she is a Mayo Clinic physician. She has all the accolades. She's doing incredible work in charity and psychiatry, utilizing forms of ketamine to really get people that have been depression treatment resistant to the other edge, having incredible results, but they were crippled the whole thing because of this attack. So it doesn't matter what stage you are, if small or whatever, it was really debilitating. And she told her story, and now they're on the other end of it. But you are absolutely right. Failure to notice the little things. So you mentioned two things that I think are very important. One, you said about email, how to recognize the right email. Can you speak about that one first, and then we'll go into how to answer the phone?
Yes. So actually, I just had this happen with a client recently who she actually clicked on the email, but luckily didn't cause any damage. But I kind of walked her through that email because she thought it was coming from So she was expecting a DocuSign to come from a reputable place because she's used to getting them. But she didn't pay attention to this DocuSign and all the red flags it had. So walking through that, she received it. First of all, it didn't say it was from like Capital One or Wells Fargo, what she was looking for. It was very ambiguous. And then the second thing was the email address it came from. It wasn't even anything that was in her address book or anything relating to what she was looking for. She just saw a docu and thought, oh, I have to click on it. But I walked her through hovering the mouse over the link before she clicked on it, and we saw it went somewhere completely different. So just these little things. And also the other thing was, it was making her create a time issue, as if saying, this is very important, final notice, failure to comply kind of thing. And things are like that, you have to watch out for it. Because those are the things that, oh my gosh, what did I do? Let me read this email. It's creating that essence to like have that time that's in value to it. So
I get those all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but if you click on them, so what he's saying is, so when you get an email in the from box, it might even say from Amazon or from Mayo Clinic or from Wells Fargo, but you have to click the little arrow and look at the actual header, because the name can be very different from the actual email. And your email does have meta tags in it and data. They cannot hide that yet. And that will show you exactly the email it's sent from. And what you'd be looking for is support@wellsfargo.com, not .co or .net or any, you want to look that it's coming from an email. And then you want to make sure in the thing of the email that you can, if you get something you don't know where it is, don't be shy to get out of the email, go to wellsfargo.com, your normal way of going to them, like just bypass that email altogether. Go there, get a number and say, hey, I received an email from here what is this? And have them look it up. And if they're like, yes, that's from Bob and blah, 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 and this is a correct domain that is sending it to you, then you'll know it's okay. But don't be afraid to do that.
Yes, because so many times we're so busy, we're doing so much in the clinic that we kind of just forget, and they're anticipating that you're not paying attention, that you are busy. So that's why these things get clicked on so much, and there's such an issue because you click that link, maybe you ask you to sign into something, or maybe it doesn't, but you already clicked on it. It can do stuff in the background, you don't see it happening, like start to lock out all your systems, like what may have happened with that clinic you're talking about earlier. And then it may not do anything. It may sit there in the background for weeks or months. That's why so many clinics are already been breached, but they don't know that because someone clicked on something from 3 weeks ago, 3 months ago, and never reported it because they were too scared or didn't know what they were looking at, or they weren't trained correctly.
And they just shut down the computer really quickly and thought, oh, it all went okay. Yeah.
And you see that on these webs. There's a thing called scammer. I can't think of it, but they catch scammers.
Yes.
They show them shutting their computers down, thinking, oh, I got rid of them. They bring them back up. They're still in there. That's a real thing. You have to have training. You have to have IT people. It's an ongoing process you have to have. It's not just, I have this in place or I do this, because there's an ongoing, even if you have all these things, you may still get breached. It's still possible.
Yeah, I know people that will have like Norton, or they'll have an antivirus program, but they don't use the programs. They just have it installed and they just think it's just working without them prompting it or setting it up to work whatsoever.
Now that's another thing. Norton or any of these antivirus things, those are pretty much obsolete. Those aren't going to do anything for you anymore, because the way those work is a very old school way of doing things. We need stuff now that's more behavior focused, like EDR, which is pretty much next generation antivirus. And that allows you to actually check out the behavior of emails, the behavior of files, the behavior going on in the computer. And a lot of people don't realize that. And they have a lot of that old AV stuff on their computer that they're paying all this money for, and it's doing nothing. It's literally doing nothing but sitting there and causing a headache.
Yeah. And you don't realize that because of course all the advertising you're getting from it is that it's this incredible thing, it's going to stop everything.
Yep.
And so I'm so glad we're talking to you today, because right now we probably have someone that's like, oh, we really need to get a antivirus, and they're not putting it in place. Okay, so the second thing that you talked
EDR.
about,
EDR. Yeah, EDR. Next
okay,
generation antivirus.
is that's what you would recommend?
That is correct. Now, it's not just something you can go and buy necessarily. You have to have a reputable, and I would say human focused company or MSP help you set it up so they can walk you through why you need it, how you use it, and they'll set it up for you. It's not something the doctor, the clinic should be doing, because you have more important things. You're supposed to be focusing on the patients, but you have an IT or IT company focusing on your security, you know?
Yeah, just like you would have a lawyer focus on your legal things. You're not going to go to law school and do all that yourself.
I mean,
Yeah,
I can try, but
yeah, I know I know that especially with our clinic owners that are solopreneurs, there's like, well, it's just me. But when you're talking about your taxes, when you're talking about tax strategy and setting up your business and things like that, this is pretty important, because right now it isn't like it's still, well, I know where all my files are, they're all on paper.
Oh.
Right? It's not like that anymore. We do use electronics. People want to be able to converse with us in electronic ways, and so we have to keep that safe. The second thing you talked about that I thought was piqued my interest when we first started is you were speaking about the phone. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so there's a thing called social engineering, where it's one of the easiest ways besides phishing to get information from and about a company. And what that entails is people will call your company and be pretending to be either the CEO or the IT help desk or someone who thinks they have permission to be in that company. You may not know who they are, but they're asking for things like, for example, the IT help desk. I'll call your company like, hi, this is IT. I'm locked. I think someone's locked out and you're getting to the computer. Can you just give me this password real quick? First of all, why would IT be asking you for a password to get in the computer if they're IT? But some people are so busy sometimes, they just don't realize what they're doing, and they give out information over the phone that they shouldn't. Like where the boss is, where he's at doing lunch, or what their password is to get in the building. There's these little things they just don't realize they're doing, but they need to be trained not to do them.
Oh, see, I see that. I see that in big companies being a problem, but I can see how even in smaller companies that would be a problem. Have you ever seen that happen in a company that's, let's say, less than 100 people, maybe 50 people or 20 or even less? Like, because you're going to know who the boss is because their name's on the door. Usually, Dr. So-and-so or, Julie Doe, florist, or, whatever.
But we have AI now playing a huge role in this. So, example, they could use voiceovers that sound like the boss, or they could set up a Zoom call, which happened to one of the companies I worked with. They set up a Zoom call pretending to be the CEO, looked just like him, sounded like him. But luckily, they had protocols in place before transferring any money to have to call him back, visit him in person if it's more than a certain amount, so that wouldn't happen. But they can
really. It's been that sophisticated.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's gonna get a lot worse.
Crazy. That is scary. So you're saying that the AI they got enough pictures of the CEO and enough voice clips that they were able to create what they thought would be a convincing enough Zoom fake identity, but if the people were asking him questions, were they able to ask questions, or did he they set up him saying something and like, I need you to send this money here, blah, 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 blah.
From my understanding, from what they told me, they got on a Zoom call, they're in the middle of something and they were talking with him, but they weren't really paying attention. But then they started noticing that things were a little weird and off. And that's when they kind of hung up the call. But that kept going where they weren't paying attention and they were talking like, oh, yeah, that's my CEO right there. That's Bob. Hey, Bob. Oh, you can transfer some money? Sure. What's the number? What's the account? And they're not really thinking or understanding that's not actually Bob there on the Zoom call. But that happens also with phone calls with the voices. Because all you need to do with a lot of these AI programs is type a couple of words or sentences, or maybe like 2 or 3 sentences I'm sorry, use their voice, and they'll allow you to type and talk in their voice a few sentences, and they'll recognize it and they'll use it. So they'll like take images and voices from the internet, especially if they're online or they have like a Facebook, Instagram. If they're talking in any capacity, they'll take all of that information and then they'll use that against you and call you.
Wow. I had weird things like this happen, and this was must have been almost a decade ago. So to tell you how long this has been in play, I was hiring people off of Upwork, which is now with freelancer.com that became Upwork. And I noticed I was doing interviews where people would get on, and it was the person that looked like they were in the profile, and then they would say, yeah, I'm just really excited about this or whatever, and then they would like almost like, I'm having trouble really hearing you. At that time, it was all pre-recorded. There was no AI. They would pre-record certain things and say, I just didn't hear it. I'm very excited about the job. Can we get back on the phone? I think there's something wrong with my internet connection.
Ooh.
And then they'd want me to get on the phone, and then they said, hey, there's a prevalence of this account or this account, and they were just spamming people. And that what they would do is they were doing that hourly rate, and it was all coming from like Bangladesh and India. They were hiring different actors, and they were taking American actors and said, we would just want you to do scripts. So these poor actors were just doing these scripts of things, but they were using it to get jobs that even if they just got a couple of hundred and then done, then the people would get fired and they think, oh, she was a terrible freelancer, or he was a terrible freelancer. Didn't matter. They got a couple $100 for hardly anything, right? So they were doing that, but then they were also, where it was really bad, is on like christianmingle.com, match.com, all of those things where they would get people and invested in what they thought were romantic relationships. Yep. And then they would be like, didn't you ever talk to him? Yeah, we would have a Zoom call, but it was always like a little bit off or something. And so you would learn to say, turn around, or, show me that tie or something like that, because they would have it on prompts. They would have them. What I found out later is they would film these actors at the time. And then if they press like F5, the actor would say, oh, my experience. And they would say their experience. And it was just generic enough to fit most interview questions or most romantic, of course, if you were doing the dating thing, I'm sure it was a whole other thing of that, but they had it programmed and there was someone there listening, I guess, to do it. It was very sophisticated for the time.
They put all this work into these things and so much money and backing and time into this just to scam people. It's crazy, but yet we don't put enough time into educating people about these scams,
I know.
It's key here.
Yeah. So that's crazy. So now we have AI. So that is really nuts. So what can we do to prevent fake AI, boss? Like, number one, are you telling people, oh, well, Dr. Smith isn't in this week, they're on vacation? Well, that would be a perfect time for that would be a perfect time for Dr. Smith to come back in, make a call and say, hey, by the way, there's been an issue, blah, 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 blah. You're going to need to put this money to this account right here to pay for something. You should have full things for that, correct?
Oh, 100%. You have to have protocols in place, but also you have to have a training program, because you have to train and let all your employees know these things, from the receptionist to the CEO. It's a community action that we have to take. It's not just IT, it's not just the CEO, it's everyone to have the same training, understanding that all this stuff can and will happen. It's a matter of when, not if. It doesn't matter if you're a small solo or a bigger company. So when you're a smaller company, threat actors will go after you even more, because they think you don't have the resources or the protections to help protect yourself. When you go after a company that has a bunch of locks and security and stuff in place, or you go after a company who's new and doesn't have anything in place, it's kind of which one does lower hanging fruit, and we don't think about that. And there's so much to think about, it becomes overwhelming. But that's why you have IT that should be helping you train and understand these things from that perspective.
Yeah. And I think it's more important than ever. And, I want to go back to your story. I know I just glossed over it, that you had like some really horrific things that happened. I mean, you almost died, and you had to recover, and you had to do a lot of stuff. Can you talk about because you also deal with autism too. So you've dealt with this, but yet now you're this leading cybersecurity expert. And you've talked about how going through those challenges have helped your approach to being a leader and leadership in cybersecurity today. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it's fascinating to know you have a very different mindset about it, but it's also brilliant. But it's because of what you've been through.
That is correct. So a lot of it starts with self-leadership. And a lot of that I didn't know or understand that I had to literally overdose and die to really understand my purpose and to understand how I need to lead myself so that I could lead others and their companies. Because before I had that incident happen and died, I pretty much lost my humanity. I was just drifting through life, just not understanding, not figuring things out, very frustrated, depressed, high anxiety, a lot of imposter syndrome, like who am I to help people? And there was just a lot of that. But after that incident, I started understanding. I had a voice speak to me when that incident happened that my purpose is not over, that I have more to do here. And through that, I went on the road of down the path of entrepreneurship on that journey, learning about myself, learning about how I can help people, how I can be of value, how to really self-lead myself and lead myself with my humanity so I can help other people lead their companies with humanity. Because within technology, a lot of that's lost. We don't lead that way. We just tell people what to do. We don't help them how to figure things out, how to do for them that works. So in my journey, I realized that this is something I wanted to do and pursue. And it really gave me drive and passion, starting the podcast, helping people with technology, and kind of putting the two together and realizing I can be a strategic business partner for people, but starting with the human aspect, connecting with them as human beings, treating them like human beings. Because throughout my career, I wasn't treated like a human being, but I also didn't treat myself like a human being. So a lot of people in IT, they're treated more like office furniture than humans. Like, what can I get out of you? How can you help me? Not how can we help each other? How can we help the business thrive?
I think that's a lot of business, Justin.
It is.
It isn't.
And it doesn't have to.
Yeah. No, it doesn't have to be. And you know what I love? I love it when we've talked before, because you're like, okay, so you're talking about all this, incredible human growth, but then you are in cybersecurity and you always relating it back to cybersecurity. And I love the fact that that's your passion. That's what your purpose on the planet was to be. This is what I'm really, really good at. But yet, even though it's something that you would think is so disconnected from humanity, right? And being human, the way that you're speaking, it is for you very intrinsic. So how do you feel this recovery that you've done, not just recovery, it's growth as you grow into who you are meant to be? What are the parallels you see between your growth and how you're helping companies or individuals strengthen like their cybersecurity posture?
Yeah, so I had to learn to show up for myself. If I can't show up for myself, I can't show up for the companies or my family or people I'm trying to help. So I really had to learn how to be human and provide human skills, not only to myself, to others. So in doing that, bridging the two together, I saw within cyber that that lacked that human connection. And that's kind of the issue why companies are getting so many things and being so impacted by events that are happening and breaches, because we're missing that human aspect in our leadership for self and our leadership for companies. And we have to come together as a community and help each other, teach each other, educate each other. And bridging that together is the only way we're going to protect ourselves and other people and businesses. And that's the only way I saw to do that, because that's the only way I could be authentic with it. And I'm starting with cybersecurity because I saw that there was an issue here with the humans are being disconnected from the technology. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stay there, because this, like we said, this issue is not just within clinics and small companies, but everyone. It's a huge issue. Right? It's global, we got to start somewhere.
Oh, it's affecting everyone. It affects schools. It affects your personal life and how you're emailing. Now we all,
there's fear.
Yeah. There, it's big. So can you talk about a little bit too? I know that I mentioned that you were on the autism spectrum because you talk
Yes.
about this very openly,
Yeah.
about the challenges and advantages you have. But how have you learned to leverage that into some superpowers? Because I love the fact that you are so open about it, but it also gives you an advantage. And I love that when people are able to go, okay, this is a big challenge for me, but I can change this challenge. So before we talked about when I was homeless as a teen, and one thing I did that ended up being my superpower is that I knew how to blend. I knew how to not stand out on at all, because when you're homeless, you don't want people to know. I did not want to be noticed at all. Any sort of notice, and you're in a very vulnerable spot, is going to be negative notice. It's never going to be positive. And so as a consultant, I'm able to tap into that when especially when I'm in a place to where I can really just sit and work with people. And as I blend in working with them and getting through the problems, not only do I understand how their systems breaks more because I'm actually doing it with them, but then they can open up more to me, right? So that was my superpower. What do you feel like your superpower was that you're working with now?
Well, mine was actually the opposite of that because I stood out like a sore thumb. I had a mohawk in high school. I was on the ADD and the autism spectrum, so I was always just very hyperactive. But over the years, I've learned to tone that more and like understand that the superpower in that is how I compassionately connect with people, how I understand them intuitively. And I'm very good at reading people. A lot of people come to me asking me for advice or they have issues. They open up to me a lot. A lot of the clinics I work for, all of a sudden we're talking about their families and issues they're having. They're not technology related. And I realized I need to hone in on that because that's how I connect with people. And at the same time, I had a problem with authority because a lot of the authority and CEOs type people, leaders in my life, were ones I could read right through. They were not leading with authenticity. They're leading with anger, disrespect, this very bad ethics. I read through that. I always disconnect with me and those types of people. So that was kind of a superpower. At the same time, it was bad for me because we didn't get along sometimes.
Yeah. No, but that's good too. I mean, I like the fact that you saw that and you say something about it, because it's the people who just go along and don't say, I don't think this is coming from a very good, center, it probably was. But now you're managing cybersecurity for 40 plus clinics, and you're doing incredible work. And so it ends up working out when you're good in the end.
It's more about the people than the technology. The technology is easy, but having those soft skills of being a human and connecting and relating and listening, that's the hard part. And I struggle with that every day. Because some people I'm like, breathe. Ooh. It happens.
Yes, it does happen. Okay, guys, we've been talking to Justin ITee Walker, and we're already here at the end. I could talk to him forever. So, what is the single most important message or actionable lesson that you hope listeners will take away from our conversation here today?
So I'm hoping people are taking away from this that things are not just about the technology, but it's about how you show up as a human being, how you show up for your clinics, how you show up for your family, the people that are under you, how you show up to your leaders, and how you lead yourself. It's very important to understand that we all have limiting beliefs and adversity we have to overcome. And we shouldn't make that harder on people, but we should make it easier on ourselves so it is easier on other people. So
I love that. I absolutely love that. No, that's a good one too, because getting these problems out, when everyone's more connected, then you're going to have staff that are more willing to say, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right.
Yes.
Or I don't think this is the way my boss would say something if they get one of those AI calls. And when you're more connected, you're more able to see somebody who's outside trying to come in. So I think that's excellent.
100%.
So guys, we've been talking to Justin ITee Walker. And Justin, let them know how they can reach you.
Yes, you can reach out to me at Justin ITee Walker.net. And also you can reach out our podcast at Multiverse Leadership Podcast.net.
And we will have all the links for you on our show. And you can go to superclinicproject.com. Again, we're on all listening platforms. Be sure to like, follow, and share, and give us a 5-star review. If you would like downloads from this, just go to Super Clinic Project, click on our free school, and we usually make a quiz or a worksheet, or we have companions that we put to every single episode so you can get the most value from it. Justin, thank you again for being here today. I so appreciate you and your message. And I also learned something terrifyingly new that now I will have to go and communicate with people so we don't get, we can protect ourselves even better.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm
everybody.
always here to give value if you have any questions.
I know. And you guys can reach out to Justin too. Everybody have an awesome Super Clinic week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Super Clinic Project podcast. If you like what you hear, subscribe and stay tuned for further episodes of the Super Clinic Project podcast.